of the solution. In the service of these questions, no voices should have been silenced, no ideas left off the table. Open data, open science, open, honest scientific communication and debate was the way, not censorship. There are a lot of ideas out there that are bad, wrong, dangerous. But the moment we have the hubris to say we know which ideas those are, is the moment we'll lose our ability to find the truth, to find solutions, the very things that make science beautiful and powerful, in the face of all the dangers that threaten the well-being and the existence of humans on Earth. This conversation with Bret is less about the ideas we talk about. We agree on some, disagree on others. It is much more about the very freedom to talk, to think, to share ideas. This freedom is our only hope. Bret should never have been censored. I asked Bret to do this podcast to show solidarity and to show that I have hope for science and for humanity. This is the Lex Fridman podcast, and here's my conversation with Bret Weinstein. What to you is beautiful about the study of biology? The science, the engineering, the philosophy of it?
It's a very interesting question. I must say, at one level, it's not a conscious thing. I can say a lot about why, as an adult, I find biology compelling, but as a kid, I was completely fascinated with animals. I loved to watch them and think about why they did what they did, and that developed into a very conscious passion as an adult. But I think in the same way that one is drawn to a person, I was drawn to the never-ending series of near miracles that exists across biological nature.
When you see a living organism, do you see it from an evolutionary biology perspective of like this entire thing that moves around in this world? Or do you see like from an engineering perspective that like first principles almost down to the physics, like the little components that build up hierarchies, that you have cells, the first proteins and cells and organs and all that kind of stuff. So do you see low level or do you see high level?
Well, the human mind is a strange thing, and I think it's probably a bit like a time-sharing machine in which I have different modules. We don't know enough about biology for them to connect, right? So they exist in isolation, and I'm always aware that they do connect, but I basically have to step into a module in order to see the evolutionary dynamics of the creature and the lineage that it belongs to. I have to step into a different module to think of that lineage over a very long time scale, a different module still to understand what the mechanisms inside would have to look like to account for what we can see from the outside. And I think that probably sounds really complicated, but one of the things about being involved in a topic like biology and doing so for one, really not even just my adult life, for my whole life, is that it becomes second nature. And, when we see somebody do an amazing parkour routine or something like that, we think about what they must be doing in order to accomplish that. But of course, what they are doing is tapping into some kind of zone, right? They are in a zone in which they are in such command of their center of gravity, for example, that they know how to hurl it around a landscape so that they always land on their feet. And I would just say, for anyone who hasn't found a topic on which they can develop that kind of facility, it is absolutely worthwhile. It's really something that human beings are capable of doing across a wide range of topics, many things our ancestors didn't even have access to. And that flexibility of humans, that ability to repurpose our machinery for topics that are novel, means really the world is your oyster. You could figure out what your passion is and then figure out all of the angles that one would have to pursue to really deeply understand it. And it is well worth having at least one topic like that.
You mean embracing the full adaptability of both the body and the mind? So like, because I don't know what to attribute the parkour to, like biomechanics of how our bodies can move, or is it the mind? Like how much percent-wise is it the entirety of the hierarchies of biology that we've been talking about, or is it just all the mind?
The way to think about creatures is that every creature is two things simultaneously. A creature is a machine of sorts, right? It's not a machine in the, it's I call it an aqueous machine, right? And it's run by an aqueous computer, right? So it's not identical to our technological machines. But every creature is both a machine that does things in the world sufficient to accumulate enough resources to continue surviving, to reproduce. It is also a potential. So each creature is potentially, for example, the most recent common ancestor of some future clade of creatures that will look very different from it. And if a creature is very, very good at being a creature, but not very good in terms of the potential it has going forward, then that lineage will not last very long into the future, because change will throw at challenges that its descendants will not be able to meet. So the thing about humans is we are a generalist platform, and we have the ability to swap out our software to exist in many, many different niches. And I was once watching an interview with this British group of parkour experts who were being, they were discussing what it is they do and how it works. And what they essentially said is, look, you're tapping into deep monkey stuff, right? And I thought, yeah, that's about right. And, anybody who is proficient at something like skiing or skateboarding, has the experience of flying down the hill on skis, for example, bouncing from the top of one mogul to the next. And if you really pay attention, you will discover that your conscious mind is actually a spectator. It's there, it's involved in the experience, but it's not driving. Some part of you knows how to ski, and it's not the part of you that knows how to think. And I would just say that what accounts for this flexibility in humans is the ability to bootstrap a new software program and then drive it into the unconscious layer where it can be applied very rapidly. And, I will be shocked if the exact thing doesn't exist in robotics. If you programmed a robot to deal with circumstances that were novel to it, how would you do it? It would have to look something like this.
There's a certain kind of magic. You're right, with the consciousness being an observer. When you play guitar, for example, or piano for me, music, when you get truly lost in it, I don't know what the heck is responsible for the flow of the music, the loudness of the music going up and down, the timing, the intricate, even the mistakes, all those things. That doesn't seem to be the conscious mind. It is just observing, and yet it's somehow intricately involved. More because you mentioned parkour, the dance is like that too. When you start, I've been tango dancing. When you truly lose yourself in it, then it's just like you're an observer. And how the hell is the body able to do that? And not only that, is the physical motion is also creating the emotion, the damn, it's good to be alive feeling. But then that's also intricately connected to the full biology stack that we're operating in. I don't know how difficult it is to replicate that. We were talking offline about Boston Dynamics robots. They did both parkour, they did flips, they've also done some dancing. And it's something I think a lot about, because what most people don't realize, because they don't look deep enough, is those robots are hard-coded to do those things. The robots didn't figure it out by themselves. And yet the fundamental aspect of what it means to be human is that process of figuring out, of making mistakes. And then there's something about overcoming those challenges and the mistakes, and figuring out how to lose yourself in the magic of the dancing or just movement is what it means to be human. That learning process. So that's what I want to do with the almost as a fun side thing with the Boston Dynamics robots, is to have them learn and see what they figure out, even if they make mistakes. I want to let Spot make mistakes, and in so doing discover what it means to be alive, discover beauty, because I think the essential aspect of mistakes. Boston Dynamics folks want Spot to be perfect because they don't want Spot to ever make mistakes because it wants to operate in the factories, it wants to be, very safe and so on. For me, if you construct the environment, if you construct a safe space for robots and allow them to make mistakes, something beautiful might be discovered. But that requires a lot of brain power. So Spot is currently very dumb, and I'm going to give it a brain. So first make it see. Currently it can't see, meaning computer vision. It has to understand its environment, it has to see all the humans, but then it also has to be able to learn about its movement, learn how to use its body to communicate with others, all those kinds of things that dogs know how to do well, humans know how to do somewhat well. I think that's a beautiful challenge, but first you have to allow the robot to make mistakes.
Well, I think your objective is laudable, but you're going to realize that the Boston Dynamics folks are right the first time Spot poops on your rug.
I hear the same thing about kids and so on.
Yes.
But I still want to have kids.
No, you should. It's a great experience. Step back into what you said in a couple of different places. One, I have always believed that the missing element in robotics and artificial intelligence is a proper development. Right? It is no accident. It is no mere coincidence that human beings are the most dominant species on planet Earth and that we have the longest childhoods of any creature on Earth by far. Right? The development is the key to the flexibility, and so the capability of a human at adulthood is the mirror image. It's the flip side of our helplessness at birth. So I'll be very interested to see what happens in your robot project if you do not end up reinventing childhood for robots, which of course is foreshadowed in 2001 quite brilliantly. But I also want to point out, you can see this issue of your conscious mind becoming a spectator very well if you compare tennis to table tennis, right? If you watch a tennis game, you could imagine that the players are highly conscious as they play. You cannot imagine that if you've ever played ping pong decently. A volley in ping pong is so fast that your conscious mind, if your reactions had to go through your conscious mind,